Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us for our April 2019 customer webinar. Today, we welcome Bridget Sibthorp-Moeker, Corporate Director of Digital Subscriptions for Lee Enterprises. Bridget, along with Tim Turner, Program Manager for TownNews, will discuss insider secrets for electrifying your digital subscription strategy with audience data. We'll share data-powered tips, best practices, and tools that sites of all sizes can use to grow and engage their audiences. In the room, we also have Teresa Nelson, Director of New Business Development, and Rich Griffin, Product Manager for TownNews. I'm Sherry Wolf, Marketing Specialist for TownNews. The presentation will take about 30 minutes and a Q&A will follow. At any point, you can type a question into the chat box, but we'll wait to answer them at the end. Today's webinar is being recorded and will be available early next week. Bridget and Tim, it's all yours.
Thanks, everybody. We're very excited to be here. On today's agenda, we're going to talk about growing digital subscriptions, my very favorite thing to talk about. Expanding your email newsletter lists with IQ Engage. That's something that we use at Lee Enterprises on our article pages. Using IQ Engage to breathe new life into your audience development strategy, and much more.
Yeah, thanks, Bridget, for coming today. Bridget and I had the pleasure of presenting some of the same information at Mega Conference just a few weeks ago, and the crowd really found a lot of value in Bridget's presentation, kind of going through her top 10 tips to kind of get you started on digital subscriptions. So we wanted to give our customers the same opportunity to kind of go through and learn more about what Bridget and Lee are doing over at Lee Enterprises to grow their digital audience.
Excellent. Well, so just a little bit about me. I've been working with Lee for 13, almost 14 years in the digital space. So I've had the pleasure of working with TownNews and with blocks for, well, since 2009. So we've had a really good run as far as digital subscriptions. We had launched it before, but the last 18 months, we've really kind of rebuilt our strategy. And what I wanted to share with you guys today is some of the stuff that we've learned along the way. So to begin here, I want to show you 10 things that you really need to be doing to grow your digital subscriptions in your enterprise. Now, I'm making a couple assumptions before I start here. One of those assumptions is that you have the ability for people to buy subscriptions online on your website. The other assumption I'm making is that you have some sort of meter on your website, whether it's premium content or a numbered meter approach. Those are two essential building blocks before you get started. So as long as you have those two pieces in place, you're good to go. Now, I also want to say that I'm hoping that these tips are useful for somebody that's both relaunched your strategy like us, or maybe even somebody that has been doing this for the first time. So let's get into it. Number one, start asking. Now you may be thinking like, Bridget, wow, that is just groundbreaking. Thank you for sharing this great tip. Now, it's kind of a funny thing because we felt at some point like we had so many things to fix or correct that we sort of let ourselves get overwhelmed and stopped pushing digital subscriptions. And I say that because we didn't even have a subscribe button prominently on our website. So that's one of the smallest things you can do to begin building your subscription strategy, is just make sure that people can find your subscribe page. So we added a button prominently on the main nav and in the hamburger navigation of our website. Now, if you've worked in digital for a long time like I have, you know that the nav can be a contentious place. There's a lot of stakeholders that all want space on the nav bar, but this is a big part of the future. This is a big part of our strategy with consumer marketing, so you absolutely need to have that button out there. So just to kind of give you some examples here, we worked with the Google Fuse team last year. This was one of the things that we did, and around February, April, you'll see a little bump in the graph in the bottom there. We had, a huge increase in visits to our subscribe page after adding this button on all of our sites. But as you can see, that was one of the building blocks. And at the last end of the last year, we had a huge increase in subscriptions. And so what I mean to say is you got to start somewhere. You got to start today. And that's kind of my philosophy on digital subscriptions, is what can you do today to grow it? And this is a very, very simple thing. Make sure people can find your subscribe button. The second thing that I think is really, really important is being able to know your data and how people are interacting with your website. So one of the things we worked with TownNews on was implementing Google Analytics e-commerce into our website so that we could track not only how many people were buying, but how they were interacting within our purchase flow. So the way I think of it, and I kind of stole this analogy from an old friend, is that we knew how many people were entering the room and we knew how many people were leaving the room. We just had no idea what happened when they were inside of the room. So with Google Analytics e-commerce, we could track where people were getting tripped up in our purchase flow and ultimately how many people abandoned and at what point. So to give you an example here of what we were able to find, by looking at our purchase funnel, we saw that we were losing the most people at a registration and login step. And then we realized at that point that we were asking for a full address and phone number at the registration step in our purchase flow, which is just kind of ludicrous. Like there's no reason we need to know that at that point. So simply by removing some extra form fields, we were able to increase progression to the next step 60%. In just a couple of weeks, just by removing those extra form fields. So that gives you an indication there of knowing your data, being able to track how people interact with your site can really, really make some huge impacts on how people ultimately purchase. So I'll also just take a second here to talk about UTM or UTI codes. That way, if you're tracking that in Google Analytics, you can see exactly how many people are purchasing directly from your marketing and from different sources. Let's go on to the next one. Why subscribe? So you've got your button. You know how many people are interacting with your site and how they're doing it. One of the really important things is to start to look at the way you're messaging to your customers. For years and years, we were using the same messaging, unlimited access, which is great. It's clear and to the point. But when you get to start thinking about users and how they use your website and being able to form habits, you want to also consider not just direct product things, but how it impacts people's lives. So what we started to do was some testing messaging that is more impactful, that includes support local journalism, and that shows how it can help your life. Because frankly, sometimes people don't know that they need our product yet. So one of the things we did was work with Google to enact free Google surveys, house surveys on our own websites. And we asked people simply, why support local journalism? Why do you love local news? And we had a completely open-ended question and some really, really fantastic results. Now, some of them were kind of funny and kind of rude, as you would expect. But there was absolute gold in there. And a lot of the people responded that they really wanted to know what's going on in their community, that a few minutes spent reading the news can impact their life because they know whether to wear a jacket today or what happened in the city council meeting that nobody wants to go to. So those are a couple of ways that we use reader feedback to directly influence how we market our product to our customers. And even if you're like us, where in the beginning we didn't have a lot of flexibility with different price points, you can still change up your marketing and your imagery regularly just to try out some different things. And as long as you have your Google Analytics e-commerce set up, you can use that data to see how it performed. All right, the next thing, send email offers. If you only do one piece of digital marketing, do email, and do it often. And I want to emphasize that you cannot overdo email, because this is the single most important thing to getting people to subscribe. So we do email in a couple of different ways. We plunk in email ads inside of our newsletters. We have breaking news, daily headlines, obits. We've got a lot of different lists, and we put email ads there. Those are, because of the volume, simply those are very, very effective. And we also send promotional emails twice a week through our lists to non-subscribers that we have permission to send to. Now, those are really, really important, because even if you don't get a direct last click attribution to say, this had a huge impact on subscriptions, what you'll notice if you're like us is that you'll see people that open this on a mobile device because it has a high mobile open rate. But then you'll see brand new sessions start on desktops where people are buying by clicking on your subscribe button. So even if people don't make a purchase right there, this has a huge impact and a continued and lasting impact on your sales. So email, you'll read about it everywhere. That's the single most important thing you can do. And if you really think about it, we had some, questions early on, are we going to be bothering people too much? And I absolutely say no, because the thing is, when people give us their email address, it's really an invitation for a relationship. And for us, it is really, really a great tool to use because we're not fighting an algorithm to get views, to get seen on this. So definitely do email, place subscription ads in your email newsletters. And we always got to remember that we get tired of our promotions long before our users do. We see things several times because we're looking at it all the time, but our user behavior is not necessarily the same as our readers. So definitely do email, guys. Now the second thing here that I want to talk about with email is grow your email lists. Now, it may seem a little bit like the cart before the horse, but like I said in the first slide, or the first tip is start with what you've got, start somewhere, and start to build your strategy on that. Growing email lists is absolutely vital for your long-term success. And obviously, when you grow those lists, you're going to have more people to send to immediately. One of the things we do directly with the TownNews folks is the subscribe to daily headlines email opt-in right in the articles. So we do interstitials and some other things like that to get people to sign up, but these are very effective because we are directly asking people that are already in the content to sign up for more. So we use targeting with IQ Engage to identify people that are most likely to sign up. And then if they are already signed up to Breaking, then we'll show them a different list, daily headlines. And we worked with Tim and Ryan to do that a couple of months ago, and it's been very, very effective for us. So in addition to the sign-up widgets on your website, which are very, very important, we do have email newsletters already, and we're growing new ones. We run contests and giveaways to get email newsletter signups and site registrations. And those are really effective long-term because if you think about it, not only is every email address an invitation of sorts, but it's also a lead for subscriptions. So that's kind of your long tail strategy in ongoing is to build those email lists consistently. And then I just want to mention on the call out in the top right of this slide here, Pete Doucette, formerly of the Boston Globe, who now works for FTI Consulting, said that your email newsletter registrants are 10 times more likely to ultimately purchase a subscription. So those are really, really valuable users, just like if you think about the people that view the most stories on your website. So you really want to take advantage of them and continue to market to them. All right, the next slide here, run sales. So this may seem kind of silly, especially if you're maybe from more the newsroom side of the house. It's a little hokey, but this is absolutely essential. If you read the American Press Institute has a study on pricing and ultimately why people subscribe. And one of the things they found out was that even though you have people that consume your content regularly and find value in your content, ultimately it's a sale that pushes them over the edge. So it's making use of sale tactics and pricing and really, really doing flash sales that show great urgency can really, really help boost your numbers. And so we started this in earnest for Black Friday and Cyber Monday. It was an incredible success for us because people were already primed to buy. And then we started doing that on a regular basis. So it may seem a little hokey because we run the sale early. We extend the sale at the end, but I've never had a single person say, hey, you said you were going to end the sale on Friday and you extended it till Monday. No, that's okay. And, even though we're all intelligent human beings and know that, the car ads that you get in the paper with the sales, they're not really a better sale than any other time. The thing is, this works, and that's why everybody does it. That's why every retailer does this kind of stuff. So you'll find that that's putting this out there and including all of your digital sales channels, including social and putting things up on your website will really make the difference in building that. So don't be afraid to be a little out there with it. That fear of missing out, that urgency makes all the difference in the world for getting people to sign up. So when you're running your sales or you're just like regular marketing, it's really important to run targeted ads. And there's ways to do this that start out very, very simply, and you can still get a hold of a lot of people that are primed to buy without getting super, super specific. So let me explain what I'm doing here. So let's start in the top left, the La Crosse Tribune. I've got a Facebook post here with a little video animation. Now this is targeted towards, very simply, people that like the page and people that are in that certain geographic area. Now if you have Facebook Pixel, you can do some more advanced retargeting and stuff like that. But my point here is that you don't have to have a super fancy system or a ton of money to do some marketing towards people that are most likely to buy. So those were very, very effective for us and pretty simple to make. In the top middle here, finish subscribing and get your first month for 99 cents. That's running through our ad system in DFP in Google. And we have a retargeting segment on there. So we're identifying people that have hit the meter and or visited our subscribe page but didn't convert and are also not subscribers now. So people that have gotten close but not made the jump. So it's kind of an abandoned cart sort of ad in that we're trying to get people back into that purchase funnel. Because if you think about it, there's often times where you intend to buy something and you're just not able to do it right at that moment. So that's a good way to capture people. And again, we're targeting, so we're not putting it out there to people that aren't interested because they are flybys. But it's a really good, simple way to identify those people that might want to purchase. And then on the kind of like middle, right, left, middle, middle bottom, right? Yeah. $5 digital ending soon. That's an interstitial ad that we run on exit intent. And they're kind of hokey too, but they definitely work, especially when you have that sense of urgency in there. If you put an ad that just says subscribe today and support local journalism, that's great. But you really need to have that sense of urgency in these ads. When you do that and you target it to the right people, great things happen. Number 8, make it easier. So let's kind of backtrack a little bit. You started getting people through the funnel, so you have activity. You've put data with Google Analytics applied there, so you can start to watch that activity and see how people do it. You've started to run ads, and by that time, you're getting more people in the funnel, and it's a really good time to take a look at how people are interacting with your site and ultimately what's going on. So that, like the example I gave earlier about reducing form fields on that registration step, this is a great time to look at your purchase path and see what improvements you can make. Once you've kind of built that structure of getting sales and ads out, this is a great thing to do. And there's going to be some pretty simple things like those form fields that you could identify with. Then sometimes there's a little tougher things, but those are all worth doing, and you'll have that data to show you where to go. So here's an example of the St. Louis Post-Dispatch meter. One of the things we did was simplify, change the messaging, and make it mobile friendly. What we had prior to these changes was really designed for desktop computers, and you actually had to scroll on the modal window on a phone. So that didn't work. We cleaned this up, and we really improved the purchases and the purchase rate of conversions from the meter just by cleaning it up and reducing the text on there, because we know that people aren't going to read a whole paragraph to find out what to do. They just want to know what they need to do to read that article. So thanks to our friends at TownNews for helping us to streamline that pathway to purchase. Number 9, give them options. So one of the things I haven't talked about yet is your actual subscribe landing page. And in the beginning, when we were first restarting our project here for digital subscriptions, we didn't do a lot with our subscribe page. We kind of left it alone. So we had the similar offers there all the time, and there was no real sense of urgency. If you think about when you purchase things online, especially if there's a couple options for subscription, there's usually some place that tells you this is the best offer or best value or most popular. And that's the kind of visual cues that people really need to help them decide. If nothing else, you need to kind of tie your sale or your promotion with the offer as it stands on that page. So a couple of things we did was add some graphics to the top that match our campaign so everything's consistent, and then use some very, very minor text changes on the offer. You'll see under Digital Basic, there's kind of a highlight just to, at the very least, show people what is the offer that we're showcasing here. And so promotional designs being consistent means a lot. That really helps the conversions from this page. And like I said before, on that urgency piece, we really need to kind of help people along and help them make that decision quickly. So this is something I'll just say that I think we need a lot of work here on Lee's subscribe page, but just by having these visual cues and these images here, that has increased our conversion from this page quite a bit. So the last thing I want to mention here seems kind of silly, but celebrate wins. When you're doing something that has as much work as relaunching or starting digital subscriptions, you're going to need the help of a lot of different people. People in finance, people in TownNews, people in your building that work on UI design, digital, and all of that. So really helping people to understand how their contributions made sales happen is really, really important. Really, especially tying back decisions that you made to data, to that e-commerce data, and to pull that back to sales, really enforces the fact that you need to get everybody on the bus and helping them understand how they contribute to that data and to that win ultimately helps everything to continue to improve. So cookies always help too. I think that celebrations like that are in order, especially when you are able to grow like we have. Just a moment to brag, I guess. Within the first year that we relaunched our product, we grew digital subscriptions 78%. And we sure did need a lot of help from a lot of different people to do that. And a big portion of that year, we were spent kind of rebuilding our strategy and learning as we go. So I'm very proud of that, and I'm very proud of the many, many people that helped us to get there. So definitely celebrate your wins, because there's a lot of reasons to be excited about the prospect of consumer revenue helping to grow subscriptions for newspapers. So just to reiterate the 10 tips here, really, really simple in terms of what you can do. I would say the most important thing is start asking. Jump in with both feet, get things going, and you'll learn along the way like we did.
All right. Well, thanks, Bridget, for kind of running through the 10 tips to jumpstart your digital subscription. My name is Tim Turner. I'm the content program manager at TownNews. And one of my roles is to work with customers like Bridget and to kind of learn what their strategies are around pretty much everything, but predominantly around audience engagement and how to drive subscriptions. So we've worked with a number of customers, including Lee, and we worked with Google to try to understand the strategy behind, in general, audience development. And just a quick overview about what the IQ program is. If you participate in our Ad Ops or our DMP or IQ Engage program, essentially what we're doing is we're collecting every interaction that a user takes on your website, every article they read, every search they make, every poll they answer, all the products they look at, and we're collecting all this data, and then we're using it to learn insights about that audience. And then what IQ Engage does is we take those insights and then we pull them into blocks, and then we let that we activate those users when they come to blocks and take more interactions on your website. And so with the help of Lee and some of our other customers, we've been able to create new product improvements that have really helped drive the strategy, and also just learn more about how users interact with websites and different pages. So one of the new things that we just released that we're really excited about is the promo button. I know it's kind of it's just a little button that goes on your site with a tooltip that pops up, but it does leverage our audience targeting from IQ Engage. And why we like this is whenever we're trying to build habits with users, there's a 3-step process, right, when you're building habits. One's a cue, the next step is a routine, and the third step's a reward. So with what we do with Promo Button is each step of the process, we're communicating to that user what we want them to do for that next step. So if it's a new user to your site, we want them to register. And so the cue is this button says register. There's a little pop-up. The pop-up communicates the reward. And the routine is to click on this button and to follow the steps wherever we might take you. And so we do this for each step of the process at registration to get users to log in, and we get users to subscribe, and we get them in this habit of coming to your website, clicking on this button or looking for this notification to tell them what they need to do to get something back from you as a customer. And so while it's a really simple thing, by putting this cue right at the top of the page and enhancing what was already there, what users expected, we really hope to drive a lot of success by moving all of our customers over to using our promo button. One of the other things that Bridget talked about was targeting your users, right? And to know when a user leaves at a certain point in a funnel or takes certain interactions with your site. So the same UTM variables that you might be tracking to understand when a user abandons an audience funnel, we're also collecting those same behaviors inside of Loadme, and we're able to create an audience off of that user. One, so that we can retarget that user when they come back to your website. So if they abandon in the funnel, we can say, hey, why don't you complete your purchase? Or was there a problem? Like, can we help you complete your purchase for your digital subscription? But also gives us a better profile report on who these users are, and if there's something from a demographic level or another insight that we can learn of why these users might be abandoning at that point in the funnel. So really, the same data you use to track your users and report on them is the same data that we're using to retarget them and reactivate that user, right? Our goal is always to identify users that we've lost and to reactivate them and get them to continue to move down that funnel. Another thing that Bridget talked a lot about, and we talk a lot about when we work with customers, is growing your email newsletters. Right? Email newsletters is a great way to build habits in your users to get them used to coming back to your site. It's something that it's putting content in front of them where they're already at. And we really encourage our customers not only to try to drive more users to their newsletters, but to also to broaden out what they're currently doing with their newsletter strategy. So when we work with customers, we tend to segment off newsletters in a couple different categories. One is general. So these are your headline list, your daily headlines, your breaking news, anything along that. And we target those to all users, right? So these are things that any user that comes to your site could benefit from. Then the next set of newsletters we focus on are interest-based newsletters. And these are newsletters that's something that user is specifically interested in, that we know he's going to have a high click-through rate, a high engagement with, and we want to send him content specifically in his inbox that he's going to be interested in receiving every single day. And we know that because we're tracking everything that user's read, and we're saying, hey, this guy really reads a lot of sports content. We need to make sure we have a sports newsletter, and we're putting that content in his inbox so he knows that it's there, he's used to seeing it, and he's used to coming back to our site and getting his fix for sports news. Another subset that we work with, and this is mostly when we talk about our umbrella sites, are geo-based newsletters. So some umbrellas will segment based on geo-targeting. We have that data inside of Loadme as well. And so if your umbrella is in a very broad set of markets, we're able to target those users and get them to the newsletters that are specific to where they live. Our goal is always to be as specific with the users as possible. So the more we learn about them, the more targeted we get. And we want to make sure that each newsletter we're sending them is as specific as possible. And I know a lot of people might be concerned, oh, is there too many newsletters, right? Is there a limit to how many newsletters I can send people? And what the data shows is no. As long as that user signs up for that newsletter and you're sending them good content that they're interested in, there's not a limit on the number of newsletters that you can send that user in a given day. So it's not something that we tend to worry about. Most of our customers aren't sending 20 plus newsletters a day. So it really isn't that big of a deal, but we really think it's a good strategy. And like all the other things we talked about, we use that audience data to put the really large offers using our promo designer block right in front of those users. And I'll talk about promo designer a little bit more in this slide. So promo designer was something, it was one of the very first blocks we built when we started talking about audience engagement. We realized that our ability to market to your users was pretty limited inside of blocks, and how dynamic and how engaging the messaging was that we were doing just wasn't really working for our customers. So we set about building Promo Designer, which when you first get into it, there's a lot of options there, mainly because we wanted to make sure that we accounted for everything that you could possibly want to do from a marketing strategy. Predominantly what we use it for, we use it a lot to drive email newsletter signups. Why we like this is because the user can sign up from the newsletter right on this pop-up. They don't have to click on anything. They don't have to go anywhere else. Right there, when they see that offer, we can activate them right then. With subscription, it's another great strategy where we're putting the subscribe button as big as possible on the page, and we're able to get them to bounce over to where we want them to be. However, right, if I went to a website every day and I was a subscriber and I saw this giant pop-up that says subscribe, I would be really annoyed, right? Because I'm like, I'm a subscriber. Why don't you know I'm a subscriber? Like, why are you telling me every single day with this giant pop-up that I'm a subscriber? Well, that's where with IQ Engage, we actually exclude subscribers from seeing these messages, right? We're able to know more about who those users are so that we're able to drive the right message to the right user at the right time. That's kind of like what our strategy is with IQ Engage. We always talk about putting the right thing in front of the right user at the right time. So we have kind of an activation workflow that we like to step users through and build engagement with your site. But we also don't want to repeat ourselves, right? If we've already converted that user, we're wasting our time and our money by trying to convert that user for something they've already been converted on. So we really take that seriously and always try to exclude users that we've already converted from seeing repeated messaging when they go to your site. And then one of the things that Bridget talked a little bit about, and they're working on coming up with a much better membership program and strategy that I think is secret for now, but you guys will probably learn more about it in the next year or so. And something we've worked with a lot of our customers is just creating a much more nuanced program, right? With IQ Engage, we're not limited to simply just saying, oh, this user has access to content, right? That's traditionally been what the value prop has been when you're selling your content to users. It's we're exchanging revenue or money for access. But we really encourage users to think beyond that and to encourage them to put more benefits in the program. So one of the things we did with Omaha and their Subscriber Plus program was we actually did an ad light model or ad free originally. And so what this does is it reduces the amount of programmatic ad that your subscribers see. And so essentially the byproduct of that is the page loads faster, the user experience is much better, those users consume more when they're on your website, and they're much more engaged, and they're much less likely to churn. And so we see much more long-term success for those users. A lot of other really popular strategies are subscriber-only newsletters or subscriber-only sections, right? A subscriber is somebody, when they've logged into your site, we really know who this person is, and we really want to tailor that experience to who they are, and we want to create these new and interesting experiences for them and really say there is value for you giving us your money and value for us knowing who you are. Another thing that Bridget does, which I always find really interesting, is giving subscribers a tier that access to e-edition, right? So as an old newspaper person, sometimes I like seeing the layouts of the page, I like seeing how this content flows on the page. And we see a lot of success when you tier a membership program and you do like a digital basic, so like only access to digital content, a tier with e-editions, and then like a print tier. Usually the highest converting tier is that tier with e-editions, especially if you offer like an introductory discount for it. And what it allows you to do is essentially double your revenue for that user each month. So just by simply giving them access to that e-edition, you can double your revenue for those users. And it's something that you can do right now through our subscriber program and through IQ Engage. And another thing that we also do that's proven successful is to only give subscribers access to read and write comments. So the first thing that this does, the quality of your comments will go way up, right? So instead of like 1 or 2 word responses, you're getting multiple sentence comments on your articles. Discussions tend to be a lot better. So we've had customers on the verge of disabling comments, go to subscriber-only commenting, and completely reverse their strategy. And again, this is one of those things where some users want to comment, and that's how they want to engage and interact with you. And by giving them access to do that, they're much more likely to keep coming back, to keep participating in your journalism, and they're much less likely to churn. So, we're not those people that think that you should disable comments by default. We really encourage customers to explore, hey, before you do that, let's limit it to subscribers. Let's see how that works and see if we're happy with the quality of what the commenters are saying.
All right. You guys ready for questions?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. That was a lot of really good information. Okay, so could you please explain what is a typical meter setting?
So I can talk a little bit about this, right? So when we're talking about subscription strategy and what is your most valuable thing that you can offer in terms of as a value prop or as a reward to your users, it's access to your content. So the higher your meter, the less likely you are to convert a large section of your customers. When I work with customers, my recommendation is usually between 3 and 5, right? So 5 is that point when a user stops being like a more general user. So about 80% of your users are going to consume 5 or less page views a month. The 20% that are most likely to subscribe and convert are going to consume more than 5. So 5 is usually where I like to set the meter. If you're above that, all you're doing is giving those users more likely to convert, access to more free content. We already know enough about that user after 5 page views that really that's where I like to set it at.
Great. What is the typical conversion rate, subscriptions purchased versus people who reach limits of paywall but do not subscribe?
So that really tends to fluctuate depending on your strategy. So Bridget showed a good example of having a really clean purchase page, right? I've seen people who have all the exact same settings. Customers have all the exact same settings. They would be almost identical, except one added a step with a really nice purchase page before you got to the actual purchase completion part of it, and they doubled their conversion rate of those customers. So it's a matter of, you should always be tracking the data and what you're looking for. I think realistically of looking at your total audience and saying, of our total audience, what is a reasonable amount of users coming to our website? Somewhere between 3 and 6% is what we see now, for 6% being on the more high performing side. And I would say that those customers could go even further, but I'd say as a good initial target, probably about 6%. And then once you hit there, then we're looking at how can we convert more and more and more and more, and keep growing from there. I don't know if Bridget, if you have anything to add.
Yeah, I want to echo Tim's comments that it really is dependent on your meter settings, on your what kind of access that people have in general, if you have apps and things like that. But we have been curious about the same exact thing. So one of the things that we found out at the INMA in Miami last year was that the LenFest Institute has a lot of benchmarking that looks all across different publishers of different sizes. And so there's a couple of things that are really useful there. I think one of them refers directly to meter and really echoes what Tim said about where you want those meter limits. The most successful publishers stop at least 5% of their audience, for example. But when it comes to conversions, that one's still kind of all over the place. if you look at an overall conversion rate of all your users, and first divide out the number of conversions you're getting, for most sites, it's going to be like 0.03%. But it really, I think, isn't exactly fair to look at it that way because, like Tim said, only 20% of your users are even eligible to subscribe based on their behavior. So that's one thing that I would recommend that you begin tracking with Google Analytics and then watch your own conversion rates increase as you begin to kind of compress the audience with meter settings and with increasing those flash sales.
Okay. TownNews offers recurring billing with PayPal. We've been using authorize.net for TownNews and other credit card processing. So we're faced with changing to PayPal to enable recurring billing. Before we do that, might TownNews enable recurring billing via authorize.net?
That's something we're looking at. It's not on our immediate roadmap, but we've had quite a few people request that, and so we have some improvements coming to the to that side of things in the future. So I don't have anything concrete to tell you right now, but just know that we're definitely, that's something that we want to move forward with.
Okay. How does IQ Engage work alongside GDPR?
Yeah, so I think, one of the things that TownNews is really serious about is privacy and your users' privacy. It's one of the reasons why, we have product team focused on that whole topic. So Load-Me is GDPR compliant. So that means we're not tracking data on users that are from the European Union. As data laws continue to expand within the United States, we're continuing to monitor them and to make sure that we're compliant with data laws in the U.S. as well as abroad. So IQ Engage is perfectly acceptable. In general, this is where I fall on data collection. If you're using it to improve the user's experience and to give them a better experience, users appreciate that type of data collection and data usage. If you're using it to take advantage of them or to manipulate them, that's where users don't appreciate that. And so, right, for us, it's kind of an ethical approach to data collection and how we use that data and encourage our customers to use that data.
Okay. Bridget, what was the resource you just referenced for the industry benchmarks?
It's the Lenfest Institute.
We will get the link from you and include it with the recording.
Absolutely.
Do you build customized email templates for your users and manage email databases for your clients, or do clients have to take charge of building, designing, and managing their own email marketing?
So it's kind of a complicated question. So in terms of like more sophisticated email marketing, like drip campaigns and things like that you would manage through like your email service provider, we don't really have a lot of those features yet in our email reach product. That's something that we're looking at expanding into. In terms of marketing to users to get them to sign up for email newsletters and things like that that we do support, like with our email reach, we try to help you as much as we can on developing those. But yeah, we don't currently have a very sophisticated system to manage like a new subscriber path, like a campaign where you're hitting that user at a certain points in their life cycle as being a new subscriber. We don't have drip campaigns to re-engage those users if they abandon. So our email reach product doesn't really have a lot of those features.
Yep. We are looking at some features that will help with onboarding customers as well as retention. So keep an eye out for those.
Yeah.
Can limiting commenting on a site be extended to Facebook comment plugin, or can this only work with the TownNews comment tool?
We'll have to get back to you. So in Zen, we did it that way. I'd have to double check to make sure we built it the same way in Flex. So essentially what it does is it hides that whole comment portion of the page and puts it behind the paywall. So that's how it worked. We'll double check that it still works that way in Flex. I know that's how it worked in Zen. Yeah.
We should probably make sure.
We have a lot of comment third-party comment provider, so we just want to make sure that we're communicating all of them that are supported with the subscriber-only commenting.
Okay. When we answered the first question, Tim, you said usually 5 pages, anything more, and you're giving away content. Is the total read inclusive of persons that read via the app? 5 reads for desktop, mobile, web, tablet, and 5 reads for mobile app? How do you address that?
So if they're asking about how metering works versus what I recommend, so the way that if you're using our Now app, we're tracking in terms of how many reads, and in terms of page views and analytics, they're tracked in that same analytics, right? So if they read in the Now app, it's for when the reporting that you get from our IQ Engage team, it's the same kind of lumped together. But in terms of how metering works, I'm going to throw it over to Rich to talk about how the metering count system works across devices.
Right. Metering doesn't work cross-device. It's tracked on the count is actually tracked on the device that you're using. So you're going to have a separate meter in your Now app as opposed to on your desktop. So I mean, that's a short and sweet answer, but that's basically how it works.
Yeah. So, I mean, one of the things that I always talk to customers too is to look at how much free content they're giving away, and to also try to track how many stops they're getting, right? So how many users are we stopping each month who are hitting that wall? And those are metrics that you might be able to track to convert more users. I mean, we like Now app users. They're very engaged. And it's something we definitely encourage you to push to your subscribers. Because, I mean, the content is free, but because the Now app's free, it gets them to be more engaged. But yeah, in terms of right now, we're currently investigating how to, incorporate subscription better into that application. So,
how are we doing on integrating the account creation with paying for subscriptions? Right now, it's 2 processes.
They're still separate, yes. We have plans in place to make a lot of the purchase workflow as well as the user creation workflow a lot more streamlined. Know that there's a lot. I won't get into all the details of it, but yeah, we have that coming up this summer sometime.
Yeah, one of the things we recommend that you do at the registration point is to limit it to the data that we need to collect just for registration. And then when they hit the subscription wall, that's when we'll collect more of that information, like address and all that stuff. So if we limit the amount of information we're collecting at registration, we're reducing friction, and we see higher users convert at the registration step. Yeah. So that's what we're encouraging our customers to do right now until we can work on that workflow a little bit more.
And one other thing, there are some paywall settings that you can utilize to be able to at least show the users the actual offers before they're logged in. I mean, creating an account and logging in has to be part of the process of purchasing, but at least you can get those offers out in front of people before they're, while they're still anonymous.
Yeah, and I think, Lee does a really great job, in addition to what Rich said, of showing offers to users before they even hit the wall. So if they see a user progressing towards the wall, they get an offer in front of them, or ask them to give them their email address to get an offer pretty early in that process, or at certain points. That way you're starting to try to activate that user and communicate to them before they hit the wall. And if they do hit the wall, then like, oh yeah, I remember I got that email offer to get a discount. So they go back and are increasing your chance to convert them there too.
Great. Thank you, everyone, for the questions. If you have any, type them into the chat box now. I think that might be all we have. Thank you so much for the good information and the helpful tips. And stalling to see if anyone else has any more questions. Anything else you'd like to add as a takeaway?
I think one thing I'd just like to add, if you currently have the IQ Engage program, I definitely encourage you to reach out to us. We divided IQ Engage into 2 parts. One was behavioral content recommendations, and pretty much all users who are in the program kind of have that set up on their site. The other part we call dynamic targeting, which is what we do with subscribers and email. That was something that we were asking customers to request from their project managers. So if you are interested in exploring this further and you have IQ Engage, please reach out to us and we can get you set up and get you started.
Great. A couple more questions. If a TownNews user has a third-party service for the e-paper, can you still use the design box to filter if they are a e-paper subscriber? Or is that tied to our e-edition?
What are they at?
If they're using a third-party edition, can they restrict access based on that? Sounds like.
That's something that you'd have to take up with your e-edition vendor. We have the ability, we have a web service API that allows people to tie into our user and subscription system. So there's some things that they can do to tie things together there.
Do you recommend using a hard paywall and offering no page views?
Yeah, so that's a good question, and my advice is no, right? So
I would echo that. Yeah,
it's a hard no. So when we think about users, right, and if we look at a normal site, 80% of the potential people to read that site are going to consume 5 or less page views a month. If they see a hard paywall, they're very unlikely to convert at that point. And also, you're leaving half of your page views. That 80% of users is probably going to generate about half of your page views. You're leaving half of your page views from a monetization standpoint completely out of the picture. So we think giving away a little bit of content to build information about the user, let the user see what you have to offer. But I do recommend and always recommend a very low meter setting, right? Very low.
All right. Will a recording be available? Yes, this is being recorded and we will have it on our website and also send out an email with a link in the next few days. So I think that's all the questions that we had. Bridget, do you have any takeaways you want to, final thoughts?
Not really, just, like I said in the very beginning, get started. It's, this has been a really, really great experience. So thank you so much for inviting me today.
Thank you for coming. There are multiple ways to stay connected with us. You can find all of our documentation at help.blockcms.com. You can call our support line at 800-293-9576 or visit support.townnews.com. We have a great partner community, community.townnews.com, where you can share ideas, talk about strategies, see what other people are doing. If you get stuck, you can ask for questions there, and people exchange ideas all the time. You can check the service status at townnews.status.io. You can follow us on Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, or YouTube. And we are going to be at the NAB show next week, so come see us there. You can also sign up for a number of newsletters on our website on the News tab. So anyone who attended today will be added to our webinar announcements email, so you'll be able to get those invitations and recordings in the future. And with that, I think that's all we have. Thank you so much, Bridget. We're happy to have you here. Thank you, Tim, and everyone who contributed. And have a great day, and we'll see you next time.